What's up, guys?
How you doing?
Good. What?
What was the idea to bring in the free agent quarterbacks just to keep tabs on them in case you need them down the road, or what was the?
Yeah, we needed to take a look at all those guys, see where they were at. You know, some played in preseason, not all did, and just want to take a look at them in person.
It's going to take time for them to learn the offense. Why not sign one this week so that they can start that process?
I wish we could. I wish we could sign extra of all players. I wish we could sign extra quarterbacks, extra wideouts, extra safeties, but you got a 53-man roster. We got a lot of guys banged up. In order to sign someone, you got to cut someone or put them on IR. And we got a lot of guys who are questionable this week, where we won't know until the end of the week whether they're playing or not. So those aren't IR candidates, and they're definitely not guys we want to cut. So it just makes it tough.
Down the road, would you want to have 3 quarterbacks on your 53-man, or the 2 guys and 1 on the practice squad?
If it works for our roster, you'd always like 3 if it works. It just doesn't always work. So we'll see how this plays out week to week.
Is the team at all looking into trade possibilities at quarterback, or is that not something you're
No, that's not something I'm thinking about.
Did CJ get going right away on Monday, come in and start going to work on the Chargers? How's the preparation gone this week with him?
Good. He's done what he does every week, whether he's starting or he's the number 2. The whole team comes in on Monday, and it's all dedicated towards the day before. So we spend all that, from when they come in until about 4 o'clock. Then the nights, coaches getting a head start on this week's opponent, and then Tuesday's their day off. So guys do stuff on their own. CJ has a routine that he always does, and comes and meets with Rich for a little bit.
How did you address with the team just Jimmy's situation and how to get over it?
Just like they had to get over McKinnon's. It's I think everyone's been around it enough. This happens a lot. Not always with 2 guys here in the first 3 weeks, but almost everyone has been a part of something where they've lost a guy like this, and it takes a little time. Like I said on Monday, you got to talk about it. You're down a little bit about it, but when you come in today, it's time to get ready for the next game, and we go through the game plan. You see the guys, you feel the energy in the room, and I think our guys are pros. They know how to handle this, and we got 13 games left in the season, so there's a long way to go, and there's not time to sit here and feel sorry for ourselves. It's time to step it up and win some games.
Do you get any offensive reps for Nick, or is all of his work scout team?
They usually get a couple reps. CJ would get a couple reps when Jimmy was going, and now Nick will get a couple reps, but most of that work is on scout team. That's also what's hard about a third quarterback, because they don't get reps. Your third quarterback's usually given scout team looks as a safety or an extra receiver just to help guys out. So most of the reps go on scout team. They get a couple each period, usually it's run plays, and they're doing a lot of stuff on air.
And is there any carryover whatsoever where Nick's practice squad or scout team reps would replicate what you guys are doing offensively?
To a degree. Sometimes there's carryover. The nice thing is when defenses are similar. Nick will be going against our defense most of the week in practice, and the team we're playing on Sunday has very similar defense. So this week that would be a benefit, but it's definitely not always that situation.
See, Garoppolo's hanging around and kind of helping out as a, like glorified assistant coach.
Oh yeah, and Jarek's been doing the same thing. Jimmy's been around. He was around all day Monday. I saw him yesterday. He's been in the meetings all day today. I know he's going to have to wait a couple weeks for that swelling to go down, and I'm sure when he gets his surgery, he'll disappear for a little bit because they got to stay in bed and make sure that to heal. But after that, he'll be around a lot, and it's not the perfect scenario, but you got to make the best out of it. And there's certain areas you can get better from sitting and watching and listening, and I know Jimmy will attack that as much as he can.
CJ was saying the other day he felt like it'd be a lot easier this year stepping in than last year. What's the biggest difference you've seen him from year 1 to year 2, particularly when it comes to maybe things slowing down for him and getting through his reads quicker?
CJ is very impressive. He was last year in terms of he's very smart. He always knows the game plan inside and out. He works very hard. He is a thinker, and he also is a reactor out there. And going through it the first time and stuff, I think it's always slower, no matter how hard you work at it. And I think he went through that, the 5 games or whatever it was that he got to play for us last year. Had some ups and downs, and then I thought he got to sit back and watch Jimmy and watch someone else try to go through it, and I think that helped him going into the offseason. I think it's when you practice and stuff, you always practice as hard as you can, but when you've been through those situations, you're a lot more deliberate in what you're doing. You know why you're doing it. You're not just doing it, and I think CJ is, he listens to everything Coach says. He does everything we ask, but when you go through it for yourself, the next year, you actually know why you're working on it. And I think when you know the whys and you have the experience of it, I think it's a lot easier to improve.
How
What's
you
better is
talk-
the supporting cast around CJ now than it was last year when he played?
I think it's a lot better. I think it was a lot better at the end of last year. When CJ came in, it was kind of, it was pretty bad timing, right? When CJ came in, we lost Pierre, which was tough. He was our main veteran out there, and we had to play with a lot of younger guys or lack of guys who hadn't had the experience. Those guys kind of grew throughout the year. They finished the year strong, so I think they've come in better this year, and I think we've added a couple new guys this year. So I think he does have a better group.
You talked about guys being professional, coming this week ready to move on. For you personally, is it hard at all to reset or recalibrate this week when your fortunes have changed this dramatically?
Yeah, I feel the same way everyone else does. It's hard that night. It's hard the next day. It's hard if I sit around and want to think about it. But nothing can stay like that in the NFL. It's the game next Sunday isn't moving. It's going to be there, and that's why it's nice when all the players come back in a day. You got a game plan in, and you have no other choice. You just move on, and you have to. And I think I've been in the league a while. You start to understand that. I think players do. I think coaches do. And when you get around the guys and stuff, I think everyone gets upbeat. We always will feel bad for what happened to Jimmy, but we're good. We're excited to practice today, and I promise you'll be ready to go on Sunday.
When you bring in 7 guys like you did yesterday, the quarterback, can you give us a little picture of how that works? Do you work them all out together, or do they have them throw?
Yeah, we worked them all out together. We had a number of guys catching for them. Some coaches just standing in spots. It's not like we can get all the routes because we're just trying to take a look at all those guys. All those guys are people we've seen film on before. So I kind of think workouts are extremely overrated. Lots of people can throw in air. That really doesn't. Everyone who plays at the NFL level can throw in air. It's how you play the position. So you go off the tape that you've watched. You bring guys in just to see where they're at, to make sure they haven't just been sitting on the couch for the last couple months. They've still been working out. They can still function, and then you mainly go off what you saw on tape.
You rank them, like your top 3 in case you need somebody, you know who to call first?
Yeah, we do that.
Well, where are you at with the defense? It seems like they've been better in those 2 road games after halftime. They played pretty well in the first 3 quarters of that home game. Where are you at with the defense, and what do they need to do to play a full 6 season?
I think the most obvious one is we got to tackle better. I think you guys can see that statistically. You can see it with your own eyes just watching the game. We have to tackle better in order to improve. In this last week, I thought we had too many mistakes versus a good offense that gave them a few too many freebies in that first half, which put us in a huge hole. The first thing I'd say is the tackling.
Robert said last week the big thing with tackling was taking the right angles, and that's been his emphasis. But our guys maybe being a little, not breaking down and not slowing down when the tackle's there, and is that contributing to it?
Yeah, I think it depends on what type of tackle you're talking about. Like if you're all by yourself in space, you better close that distance, break down, and make sure you wrap up and drive through them. If you're in a crowd and there's a bunch of guys there, you don't want a bunch of guys just sitting in a chair waiting. That's how 8 more yards happen. You want a hook player and you want a curl flat player squeezing on people and both of them going through them at the same time. That's kind of the essence to zone defense. And that's what you want people not breaking down on. You're not always in zone defense. It's not always a pass play. Sometimes it's a run play out on the screen. So the main thing is that I've seen when we do run and hit, you can't just hit. You have to wrap up and roll them. You have to drive them through the ground. Guys in this league are big. Guys are strong. You can hit them very hard and they still stay on their feet. It happened a lot with Dalvin Cook in the first week. It happened with a number of players versus Kansas City. And it'll happen with these guys if we don't wrap up. You can hit hard, but you got to bring your legs and you got to use your arms also.
You've said some young quarterbacks can benefit from being thrown into the fire early, and others need early success to build confidence. Would you put CJ in the first group?
Yeah, definitely. As I talked a lot about last year, I was worried because we didn't have much of a choice, and that wasn't exactly the situation I wanted to put CJ into. And that's where I think myself and a lot of our team earned a lot of respect for him because we put him in not all the weeks, but some weeks he was in a very tough situation, and he never wavered, never saw his confidence change. And when he eventually was benched and we put Jimmy in, you would think a guy would be less confident after that. And you guys can ask him, but I truly believe he was more confident. Even though he struggled at times, he truly believed he can do it. And those are the kind of guys you want to go to battle with.
Did he ever express to you his feelings when he was benched?
Yeah, to a degree. I mean, yeah, of course. I mean, I'm always going to ask him to. Also, that's a big deal to people. It would be a big deal to me if someone did that to me. So I always try to talk to the guy about it and not make stuff up. I mean, it's hard, so you're not going to try to say it's not. And CJ, it was tough on him, but he handled it like a man. He didn't sit there and make excuses about it. He supported Jimmy as much as anybody could support a person. Nobody would have felt his frustration or anything. But if you get someone behind closed doors and you talk to them, most people are going to tell the truth. And if you aren't disappointed in that situation, then something's wrong with you.
Do you feel like the running game is better now than it was when CJ was starting last year?
Without a doubt.
And, that presumably is going to help him a bit?
Yes, you hope that's the running game takes a lot of pressure off the quarterback. But in order to run the ball, as I'll always say, you also have to do good throwing because you got to convert third downs, you got to stay on the field. Buffalo played this team. I was saying the stat to our team today, but Buffalo, I think they had like 54% completions and only had like 22 runs, and they're a team who really wanted to run the ball in their quarterback's first start, but they didn't complete enough balls to run the ball, where the Rams had 80% completion 2 days ago, and that allowed them to get 32 runs in because you stay on the field. And so that stuff goes hand in hand, but I think a run game is a key for any quarterback, especially in our situation right now.
Rita, questionable.
You don't have the greatest preseason. It didn't look like Elijah took the next step there.
Yeah.
And whatnot. I don't know, how do you explain that, or what was going on, do you think, this summer?
Yeah, I mean, I don't like to sit and make excuses for guys, but I was happy with how CJ was in the preseason. I get why everyone else felt that way in the games. His stats weren't very good. He didn't get the best opportunities. Of course, he's got to take some responsibility for that, but I was never bothered. He had a great training camp and practice. The plays that he did have in the game, I didn't think he had a ton of opportunities. Sometimes it just goes that way. I mean, it happens a lot. Some years there'll be a receiver who just has unbelievable stats, and then no one can believe why he doesn't make the team. And it's just because he's just had great stats and it worked out for him, and it didn't look that way in practice every day. And then sometimes the guy has no stats, and everyone can't figure out why he made it. And it's because of what he shows every day in practice. Games don't always tell the whole story. I know that's what we're judged off of, and those are the results. But football isn't a one-on-one game. You gotta assess every single play and what's going on.
Is Breida gonna be able to practice today, or what's
Breida's not practicing today. Yeah.
Why do you think Derwin James slipped in the draft?
I don't know. I was extremely surprised. He was a guy that we were very high on. One of the better safeties that we've all personally seen coming out, so that was very surprising.
What was his versatility? It seems like they're using him a lot of different ways. Was that evident in your scouting of him as well?
Yes, definitely. He can play in the middle. He can play up a strong safety. We thought he was one of the best. It was just a couple games he did it, but we thought he was one of the best pass rushers for Florida State. Even a couple games he played defensive end for a number of plays. So he's done it at that versus tackles. He's done it as a blitzer versus backs and tight ends. So he's a very good player.
All right. Thanks.
All right, guys. Thanks.